What's up, my YouTube friends? Overlays for live streams are an easy way to really make your live streams stand out. Today I want to show you how you can create a live streaming overlay using nothing but free software and a little bit of creativity. So let's get to it. My analytics say that like 88% of the folks that watch my content aren't subscribed. Am I doing something wrong? Well, let me know in the comments. But if you are looking for tools, tips, and tricks to help make you a better YouTuber or a live streamer, subscribe to the channel and click that bell so you don't miss any new content. The software we'll be using to create our live streaming overlay is called DaVinci Resolve. It's an absolutely free editing software that has all kinds of really cool special effects and features. There is a paid version, of course, but everything I'm going to show you today is in the free package. There is a link in the description if you want to download it and follow along with this tutorial. And really, that's the best way to learn a new skill. So let's hop into Resolve and get right to it. So here we are in DaVinci Resolve. I'm just going to go into New Project, and I'm going to name this project. I'm going to call this one OBS Overlay, and then I'll click the Create. And once we're in DaVinci Resolve, I'm going to go up to File, and then I want to go into Project Settings, and I'm going to change my frame rate to the frame rate that I use for my live stream. In my case, it's 30 frames per second. Yours might be 60. And then video format, I want in that 30 frames per second as well. So I'm going to go down here and select that. You can see that changes my playback rate as well. And then I'm just going to click Save. Now down in the bottom, I'm going to click Edit, and I'm going to right click on the clips and go to New Fusion Composition Clip. And then I just want to change the duration to 10 seconds. That should be long enough for our overlay. And I'll give the clip a name. In this case, I'm going to call this OBS Overlay 1, and I'm going to click Create. You just want to make sure your frame rate is 30 frames per second there. Then I'm going to drag the OBS overlay into the timeline, and I'll zoom in here a little bit so you can see what this looks like. And this is just a blank file, basically. So if I click play, you're not going to see it actually do anything. There's nothing here yet. So now we want to create this into something. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click on the Fusion tab in the lower section of the overview here. And in Fusion, it connects with the media out, which is that video file we just created. I'm going to only need one monitor screen here. So I'm going to just click this button and adjust the sizing here a little bit. And the first thing I want to do is create a background. So I'm just going to drag that in here. First, I'll connect it to media out, and now we can see it's black. So we're just going to change it to red, and I'm going to zoom out the screen a little bit. I'm going to select the 25%. So now we can see everything. And now we want to create the piece of our overlay. So I'm going to drag this B-spline out into our node section. That's this one right here. And I'm just going to connect that with our background. You can see that now our background color is totally gone. Well, I'm just going to draw some points in here using the B-spline. So you have to have B-spline actually selected here. And I'm just going to draw these points in to create corners of what's going to be our overlay. And there you see we get this weird circle. I'm going to go over here and uncheck solid, and you can see now we get kind of this just border, and I can adjust the width of the border right here if I want. But we really don't want our overlay to be a circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go along the edges, and I'm going to create points before and after the corners so that it brings in that line real tight. And there we go. And there's the second corner, and now you can see that it basically creates a real corner here for us. And one more. All right, so now we have a box. If I select background, we can see that box without any of the overlays, and it looks pretty good. So what can we do with this B-spline box? I'm going to select B-spline again, and then I can adjust the length. So you can see it's just that little bit on the top. I'm going to adjust my border width so you can see it easier. And there you go. So then I can move the position of that little line around the box using this position slider. And we're going to use this to create our overlay animation. But the first thing I want to do is add another B-spline here. So I'm going to go ahead and just Control C on the background and the B-spline after I select them both. And then I'm going to Control V to paste them in there. So now we have another copy of the exact same nodes. So it's going to have the same box and everything. And all I have to do is select the background of our copy, and I can change the color. and you can see that it is yellow now. Now what I did was I dragged the background into the view layer so that I can see that layer instead of what's going to the media out. Any node that you want to see in your layer, all you have to do is drag it. Now I'm going to take my original background layer and drag it up over top of the other one, and it creates this merge node. Then I'm going to drag the media out up into the view screen, and I'm just going to connect this merge node to the media out. And now you can see that we have our two lines, our yellow one and our red one. Now all we have to do is animate them. So we are on frame 0, and I'm going to select the yellow B-spline, and I'm just going to place it exactly where I want it. And to do this, it's a lot easier for me to just use the numbers. So we're going to put it right in the center at the bottom. That's 0.5. And then what I'm going to do is create a keyframe by clicking this little diamond right here. And that creates a keyframe right there telling it where the yellow B-spline is supposed to be. Now if I bring my timeline out to the 60th frame and I move my position, it adds another keyframe there. So if I go back to the beginning, now I'm going to go to my red B-spline, and I'm going to add a keyframe there by clicking the dot, and I want to make sure the position's at the 0. Then I'm going to go out to frame 60, and I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to adjust that position so it's at 0.5. All right, so now if we go back to the beginning and we click play, you can see that our B-splines are rotating around that border. Pretty simple stuff. This is really easy animation to create. So now we're going to go out to frame 120, and we are going to move our B-spline again to create a new keyframe. And we'll go back to the 0 point for the yellow one. And for the red one, we're going to go to that 0.5 mark. So now if we click play, we see they go out to the center and then they go back the other way. Now this might be what you want. Maybe you don't want it rotating all the way around your screen. Maybe you want it just to go back and forth like that. But that's not really the effect that I'm looking for. I want to make sure that the lines travel all the way around my overlay. So I'm going to go back here to the frame right before 120, and I'm going to select this B-spline here, and instead of it going at 0, I'm going to put it all the way to 1. So it's going to go from 1 to 0 in one frame, and that's going to carry it all the way around, and you see that red one there going all the way around. So now we've been able to fix the red one so it works properly. How are we going to fix the yellow one? Well, we have to basically do the same thing. But what we're going to do is we're going to go back to that 60th frame. That's where it crosses its center line. And if we just set it to frame 61, then we can take our position and create a new keyframe right there. And there we go. So now we have it rotating all the way around the image. Now all we have to do is carry this all the way out to the last frame. So I'm once again going to go 60 frames ahead, and I'm going to take this one and we're going to make it 1, and I'm going to select the other B-spline and we're going to make this one 0.5, and then we're going to go ahead and play this one and see how it goes. You can see now it's going to continue all the way to frame 180. Awesome. Now I just want to make sure that I fix it so it's going to go around the way it's supposed to. So I'm going to take this one and move it back to position 0. And this is just to make it go in a circle. Then we're going to go out to frame 240, and I'm going to adjust this one to 0.5. Then I'm going to select that other B-spline, and we're going to set this one to the 240 frame, and we're going to bring it all the way up to 1, and we're going to take it 1 frame plus, and we're going to set it back to 0. And now if I click play, it's going to make a full 2 revolutions around this whole thing. And there we go. Pretty cool. Now we just need to set our final frame. So bring this all the way to the end. And for this B-spline, we are going to set it to 1. And that takes the yellow one back up to the top. And for the other one, we're going to set this to 0.5. Now, of course, you're going to notice this is imperfect because I didn't work this out with the proper frame structure. So at the beginning of the file, the red is on top and the yellow is on bottom. And at the end, the yellow is on the top and the red is on the bottom, which means that when you're playing this in a loop for your live stream, it's going to instantly switch from red to yellow every 10 seconds. But this is just a quick example. I'm sure you're better at figuring it out than I was for this example video. So that's how you can create a really cool quick overlay animation. I'm gonna take this and we're gonna copy this B-spline and background again, and I'm just gonna paste it out here. And for this, I just wanna create an outline. So I'm gonna drag that back background into my overview so I can actually physically see it. And then I'm gonna go through and I'm just gonna right click on these keyframes and remove the keyframes. I don't want there to be any keyframes in this particular one. So I'm just going to select each one at the frame and then go over to the little red diamond and right click and remove that key. And once I have all my keys removed, I'm gonna select the background and I'm gonna change this color. I'm gonna go with a blue color, I think. And I'm gonna select B-spline again and I'm gonna just make it the full length. And we're gonna adjust this border width down just a little bit. So now if I select the background, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag this merge up over top because we want our animated lines to be over top, and then we're going to connect that merge to media out, and then we'll just drag media out up here. And you can see our blue line is underneath our animated lines. So we have a cool little outline, and then we have some lines that move around that outline. This is really, really easy to create, and you can do a lot more with it. I'm gonna show you that in a second. And there's so much more that you can do with this. So I'm gonna just kind of grab all these nodes, move them out of the way, and I'm gonna drag another background in here. And I'm gonna make this one, maybe this purple color here. I like that. All right, and we're gonna just drag this background up here so we can see it. And we're gonna add a B-spline to this one. And connect that up to the background. And again, you'll see the background just disappears. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna just draw some lines up here. So I'm gonna make a point there and then make a point all the way down here. And maybe adjust them a little bit, bring them down. And now what I can do is go over here. I'm gonna uncheck the solid and I'm gonna adjust the border width so we can see it a little bit. And now I'm gonna adjust the position to show you kind of what this does. You can actually make this line completely disappear just by doing that. And I'm gonna adjust the length. And you can see when it goes to 0, you can't see anything. So we'll give it a little bit of length and there you go. Now we've got a line that can travel all the way across the screen. Just leave it over here to the right for now. What I'm gonna do is Control C on this B-spline here, this active one, and Control V. And there it goes, it adds another one. And this B-spline should be basically exactly the same as the other one. So all I need to do is move it in the overlay here a little bit. And now if I select that background, you can see now I have two little lines there. Super cool. You can create all kinds of intricate things here. And we can change the position of each one independently just by selecting B-spline. We'll move them all the way over to the left. Now I'm going to right click on this B-spline and I'm going to copy it again and right click and then paste it. And there we go. I'm just going to connect it up to the other one and we'll move this one down a little more. Now you can adjust the position of these up and down by clicking the up and down, but you'll notice later that if I try to adjust the positions left and right, it unfortunately just moves my timeline. So it's not very helpful. And if you want to get rid of the red lines and all that stuff so you can really see what you have there, you can just click background and it will remove those lines, make it easier for you to see what you're working with. And I'm just going to do some fine-tuning adjustments to try to make this look the same as the other two lines. And that's pretty close. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and animate these lines. I'm going to go to the beginning, frame 0, and I'm going to create a position keyframe for each one of these B-splines. And we want them to start at 0, I think. So there we go. I'm just going to select each one and then I'm going to move out to 60 frames. And what I'm going to do is just move this position ever so slightly. And that automatically creates a keyframe for that one. And I just want to copy that same position into the other two keyframes. And this is just going to add some really simple, subtle movement to these three lines. And if I select the background and I go back to the beginning of the composition, you can see these three lines just kind of move to the right a little bit. Now I'm going to go ahead and move out to frame 120. And I'm going to set all of these back to 0 position. So that means from frame 60 to frame 120, they're going to move back to the left. Now we'll just move out to frame 180 and we'll put in our position for that right-handed move. In this case, it's 016. And we're going to do that for all three of the splines. All right. And now if we play it, you can see it'll move to the right, and it'll move back to the left, and then it'll move back to the right. So we're going to go out to frame 240, and we're going to set each one back to 0. And then we're going to go to the very end and we're going to set each one to that 0.016. And of course, this creates the same problem as we had with our other piece of the overlay, being that these are going to automatically flip at the end instead of being a fluid animation. So just make sure that your math works out better than mine did. The best thing I probably could have done was just remove 60 frames from my animation and it would have made it fine, but I didn't bother to do that. So you're gonna see at the end of this animation, it's all the way to the right and it just pops right back to the beginning when you play it in a loop. But this is just an example, so you're gonna have to understand. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna connect this to our other overlay by dragging this background node into the merge. And then I'm gonna drag the merge node over to our media out, and we'll drag our media out up into our display, and now we can see it. But there is one problem. It's kind of over the other piece of our overlay. So the easiest way to do this is to drag this transform down here, and then I'm going to drag the background to the transform, and I'm going to drag the transform to that merge node, and I just connect it to the media out so it's what we can see. So what I can do is go up and adjust the transform on these little 3 lines. And this means we're moving them all together. We don't have to move each one individually to fix the problem that we've created. So we're connected to the media out, and if I move the X or the Y coordinates up here in transform, it's gonna move our little pink lines around all at once. So we wanna move the Y, which will move it down a little bit, but we need to connect up our transform to this merge node, and then we'll connect the merge node to media out. Now we can see it all together. Here we go. Now we'll select the transform and we can move around a little more here. Just get everything totally situated. And there we go. Now we have our pink bars moving and we have our outline moving around our overlay. And the pink bar moving thing is very subtle, which is good. Sometimes if you have too much movement on your overlay, it's distracting to your viewers. So you're gonna wanna keep that in mind when you're designing your own overlay. There we go. So I wanna add one more element. I'm going to drag another background out here and I'm gonna change the color on this background to a gray. I'm just gonna drag that up into the viewer so we can see it. Now what I wanna do is I wanna add a rectangle to this. And what a rectangle is basically a mask. It's gonna give me the ability to reshape this box. And I'm gonna reshape it and move it. And I'm gonna add a little bit of radius to the corners. And now what I wanna do is add this in to our other nodes so we can see how it fits in with the rest of our overlay. So I'm going to just drag this down on top of the merge 3 node, which is going to create another node. And then I just need to drag the media out up so we can see it all together. And there we go. Now I'm going to select that rectangle again and adjust the crop of our box and use these arrows to move it back into the location that I want it. Man, I think that looks okay. Now there are all kinds of things that I can animate using the rectangle and the background. So if I go to the properties window on the right hand side, I can adjust this soft edge here to give the edges a really soft touch or even fade it out. I can use border width to make the edges fat or thin, and I could use this to add like a pulsing effect to our little box. I can make it solid or unsolid by unchecking this, and anything with these little triangles next to it is something that can be keyframed. So you can use this with any of those features. So what I'm going to do with this box is I'm going to animate a couple of different features. The first thing I'm going to do is add a little bit of movement. I'm going to have this move just a little bit back and forth. So I'm going to put my playhead all the way at the very beginning on the first frame, and I'm going to go ahead and select the triangle next to position once I have this located exactly where I want it, and that creates a keyframe right there. Then I'm going to move the playhead to frame 150, which is halfway through our composition, and I'm just going to move this box just a little bit to the left. I want this movement to be pretty subtle because I want to be able to use this box to put stuff on as well in my live stream, and that adds a keyframe there for the position. And now if I move this all the way to the last frame, I can just put the same position in. I don't remember what the position is, so I'm going to move the playhead all the way to the first frame. I'm going to copy out this position right here. Then I'm going to go all the way to the last frame, and I'm going to paste that position in. And there we go. It adds a keyframe there. So now I can go ahead and play it, and we're going to see subtle movement of that box to the left. And then at frame 150, it's going to start moving back to the right. Cool. Now I'm going to go back to the beginning playhead and I want to play around with the corner radius. So I'm going to make the corners really sharp at the beginning of our animation. So I'll just move the corner radius and then I'm going to click this diamond to set a keyframe there. I'm going to move to frame 150 and I'm going to make those corners more rounded somewhere in there. And then I'm going to move all the way to the end and I'm going to make the corners sharp again. And now when I play this, as our box moves to the left, our corners get more rounded, and once it hits that frame 150, it starts moving back to the right and our corners are going to get sharp again. And there are just so many types of animations that you can add to make it really cool with your overlay, and they can be really subtle, so maybe people hardly notice, but it's just like a little Easter egg. Now I'm going to do a little bit of a color change, so I'm going to go ahead and set it to the beginning frame and click the box next to color. I'm going to go out to the 120 frame. I'm going to add some alpha into our box, and this means it's going to make it so that you can see through it. I'm going to adjust the color to black, and I'm going to add some alpha into our box to make it transparent. And so what I want to do is move my playhead all the way back to the beginning of the composition. I'm going to copy out this hue value by selecting it and Control C. Then I'm going to move to the last frame and paste it in there. I'm going to change my saturation to 0, and I'm going to go back to the beginning and copy my value here, which is 0.22, and I'm going to move to the final frame and paste that in there. And then all I need to do is adjust my alpha all the way up again, just like it is in the first frame, so that it is not transparent anymore. So I just move this bar all the way down and we're all set. Now it will transition to a little more transparent at frame 120, and it will, once it hits frame 120, transform back into that gray, less transparent box. And this is just a really simple, easy kind of transition that you can do with solid boxes or anything like that. And just kind of giving you some examples of what is possible so that you can go in here and experiment for yourself, and you can really create some incredible overlays just using these really simple keyframing tools. And this should give you some idea of the kind of things that are possible. So I think that is our complete overlay animation. The next thing we need to do is go ahead and export this. First, you want to go down here to the bottom, go to edit, and just play your overlay once just to make sure everything works. Now, if you have a machine that can't really handle this sort of thing, you're going to get stuttering like you see here. It does happen. It doesn't mean it's not going to export properly. And once it does export properly, it's going to play great. But if you move your playhead back and forth, you can see that we're getting the look that we're looking for, which is good. So I'm going to go down here and click on the deliver button in the bottom of the screen here. And then I'm going to change my file name here in the left panel. I'm going to call this one OBS overlay. And I'm going to browse to the location where I want to save my file. Now under format, what I'm going to do is select QuickTime, and under codec I'm going to select uncompressed, and under type we're going to do BGRA 8-bit, and the A is for alpha. But you can see if we look here, it's not giving us the option to export our alpha. And if I scroll all the way to the top, you can see it's because I don't have individual clips selected. So if I select that and then I just scroll down here a little bit, you can see the export alpha box came up. I just select that and now we're all set. All I need to do is select add to render queue, and then over here on the right I see it show up. I just click start render, and it's a very short clip, so it should render pretty quickly. And the next thing that we want to do is open up Shutter Encoder. Now this encoder is totally free. There's a link in the description so you can download it and check it out. And we're going to click browse, and we're going to browse to the location of the file we just saved out of DaVinci Resolve, and we're going to select that and click open. Now under function, we're going to drop that down and we're going to go to output codecs and we're going to select VP9. Then we want to click this little change radial and we want to select where our file is going to be saved to. Next, we're going to go to the right pane and we're going to select max quality. This creates a very small file, so that's perfectly fine. Then we go into advanced features and we're going to select enable alpha channel. And now everything is all set up the way we want. We can just click start function, and this shouldn't take very long to complete. It's only a 10-second file, but basically this is going to take a just massive file that was created by DaVinci Resolve and make it very, very small and easy for OBS to use. Now if we flip over into File Explorer you can see that the original file that came out of DaVinci is a massive 2.5 gigs, and the overlay that we just created using the shutter encoder is very small. So in OBS, we're going to click the plus under sources and we're going to go to media source, and we'll just call this overlay. Click OK. Then we're going to go and browse to our local file, and of course this is going to be the overlay we just created. And this is going to be the one labeled VP9. Click open, and we want to set it up to loop. It's only 10 seconds and we want it to continually run, and then we'll click OK. And there is our overlay. Looks pretty cool. It's kind of busy. You might not want yours quite that busy, but it looks really neat. Now I can select it down here and I can adjust the border edges, push them out more towards the edge of the screen. And if I use the arrow keys, I can add more fine-tuning adjustment, move it up, move it left, move it right, to get it placed exactly where I want it. And that looks pretty cool. The lines going around almost feel like they glow. Now I'm going to right click on overlay and go to properties, and I can use this speed adjustment to adjust it down. So maybe it's not moving quite so fast and it's not quite so intrusive. But when I do that, you can see that any object that was really fast moving is going to end up choppy if you adjust the speed. The slower moving objects are not choppy, they're fine, but the fast moving objects are pretty choppy. So this should let you know maybe you want to make sure that your stuff is much more subtle than what I created here. I can move it up a little bit more, and this is slower than it should normally be, but fast enough to make it not look choppy. So that looks pretty cool. Now I'm going to add a little bit of text on here, so I'm just going to click the plus and go to the text tool, and I'm going to select the font. I'm going to add some text in here, and I'm going to go down here. I'm going to add a little bit of a black background to my text, just a slight box, and I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to resize that text up and move it into a location that seems like where it should be. And I can finally adjust this as well with the arrow keys. And now I'm not super excited about the box. I don't think it needs that actual backdrop box. So I'm just gonna right click on my text, go to properties. I'm gonna lower the opacity of that box so we can't see it, and click OK. And now take a look at our text element. It looks pretty good. Now this box that I created over here on the right that moves back and forth, you could probably add a browser source in there, like your chat overlay or anything else that you want to add. And it looks pretty cool. It has a really subtle animation that's not going to be too distracting. And that's about it. You can see here that the only real limitation is your imagination. Now this is a super simple, quick, and really imperfect example of what is possible using this technique. The only real limit is your imagination and creativity. Check out this video if you want to see another method to create free live streaming overlays. And if you're always looking for tools, tips, and tricks to help make you a better YouTuber or live streamer, subscribe to the channel. My name is Michael Fire Jr. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.